you to try a little mental experiment with me. Picture this. You have a new product idea, a really specific one. Let's call it spicy caffeinated yogurt.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
And a little scared.
Right. Now, in the old world, if you wanted to know if this was a genius idea or, a crime against dairy, you had one path.
The focus group.
The focus group. You'd recruit a dozen people, pay them $50 each, stick them in some fluorescent lit room behind a two-way mirror, and just watch them eat it.
Which is always slow, it's expensive, and honestly, it's usually pretty awkward for everyone.
Totally. It takes weeks. But imagine you just skip that room. Imagine you feed the concept into a model on your laptop, and in like 30 seconds, you get feedback from a person. And they tell you the texture's a bit off, the spice is aggressive, but that caffeine kick. A huge selling point for college students during finals week. They give you a price, a marketing tagline. But here's the catch.
That person doesn't exist.
Not at all. Welcome to the era of the synthetic consumer.
It really does sound like cheating, doesn't it?
Right.
Like you're looking at the answer key before you even take the test.
It does. But looking at this stack of research on the desk today, and we're talking reports from Qualtrics, the Market Research Society, ESMR, even Wired Magazine, this isn't some fun little experiment anymore.
No. It's fast becoming the default setting for how things get made.
And that's really the mission for our deep dive today. We're not just looking at the cool tech, we're looking at a very specific operating discipline called the human truth firewall.
Because the danger here, and this is critical, isn't that the AI won't work. The danger is that it works too well at creating what these sources call confident fiction.
Confident fiction. Wow, that is a haunting phrase for anyone who runs a business. It's like you're driving 100 miles an hour, totally confident in your GPS, but the map is hallucinating a bridge that just isn't there.
That is the perfect analogy. And the data suggests a lot of companies are already in that car, and they're driving very, very fast.
Let's get to those numbers, because they genuinely surprised me. I thought this was a niche future tech thing for, the Googles of the world.
Right.
But Qualtrics released data showing that 71% of market researchers believe synthetic responses will make up more than half of all data collection.
And that's not in 10 years.
No, that's within the next 3 years.
It's a massive swing. And Research Live backs that up. They found that almost 70% of researchers have already used synthetic responses in the last year.
So just to be super clear for everyone listening, because synthetic consumer sounds a little bit like a robot shopping at the mall, what are we actually talking about here? It's not just asking ChatGPT a generic question, is it?
No, it's much more sophisticated.
Yeah.
The way Neil Tenekew and the Market Research Society define it, a synthetic respondent is an AI-generated persona.
A persona.
You're not asking the model what it thinks. You're giving it a role.
Yeah.
You say, you are a 35-year-old suburban parent who prioritizes organic food but is also on a very strict budget. Then you ask that persona to evaluate your concept.
But there's no actual human behind the curtain.
Zero. It's a ghost in the machine. It's a mathematical prediction of what that person would say.
And that, I think, brings us to the core tension in all this research. On one side, you have incredible speed and cost savings. You can iterate 100 times a day for the price of a coffee.
But on the other side, you have this huge gap.
Right.
Teams are adopting the tools because they're fast, but they haven't built the judgment systems, that firewall, to know when the bot is, lying to them.
Right.
We're treating directional inputs like, this seems interesting, as definitive answers. Let's go launch the product. But before we dig into the solution, we have to give the devil his due. I mean, why is this taking over so fast? It's not just because people are lazy.
No, the sources point to something they call the innovation bottleneck. And I think anyone who's ever worked in a big company, especially in consumer goods, will feel this in their bones.
Oh, yeah.
It's the sheer volume of, frankly, bad ideas that are just clogging up the pipes.
It's total paralysis. You've got way too many concepts. The briefs are weak. And then you have that classic political problem of internal sponsorship.
Ugh, the pet project phenomenon. The vice president of marketing loves the idea for salmon-flavored chips, so nobody wants to be the one to kill it.
Exactly.
So you spend 3 months and 50 grand validating it just to prove what everybody already knew. Nobody wants fishy chips.
Precisely. And this is where the sweet spot for synthetic consumers really lies. They can be the unbiased bad guy. The AI doesn't care about the VP's feelings.
So you're basically using the AI to kill the zombies.
That's the core utility. And the sources really emphasize this distinction. Synthetic consumers are for narrowing, not for finishing. You use them to take 50 ideas down to the 5 best ones. You stress test your assumptions. You find the obvious flaws on day 1 for pennies.
Okay, that makes total sense. You clear the clutter so you can spend your real money and your real human time on the ideas that actually have a pulse. That sounds great.
It is.
But this is where the research gets a little darker, because if you stop there, if you only use it for narrowing, you're fine. But people aren't stopping there.
No, they're not.
They're relying on it for the nuance, and that leads to what the sources call the 4 failure modes.
And these failure modes are so critical. If you take nothing else away from this dive, remember these, because they explain exactly how AI generates that confident fiction we mentioned earlier.
Let's walk through them. Failure mode 1 is amplification of the input.
Okay, so this goes right back to how these large language models actually work. We have to remember, a synthetic consumer isn't a person. It doesn't have a life, or memories, or a bad back, or a complicated relationship with its mother.
Right.
It's a statistical and linguistic reflection of the data it was trained on. ASMR, the Global Research Association, warns that the model acts like a mirror.
But not a perfect mirror. It's more like one of those funhouse mirrors that makes everything bigger.
A magnifying mirror, yes. If your prompt has even a slight bias, or if the training data has a bias, the AI just amplifies it. It gives you a caricature. And the dangerous part is, it hides these huge weaknesses behind perfect grammar and logical-sounding arguments. It sounds so authoritative.
So it's garbage in, polished garbage out.
And because it's so polished, it's much harder to spot the garbage. You read it and you think, wow, that's really insightful, when it's actually just reflecting your own bad assumption right back at you.
Which leads right into failure mode 2, and I think this is the one most people will get immediately. The flattening of emotion.
This one is huge.
I mean, we don't buy things for logical reasons. I don't buy the cookies I buy because I did a cost-benefit analysis on the nutrition label.
Of course not.
I'm buying them because I had a bad day and I want a hug in the form of sugar.
Exactly. The sources call these micro moments, the specific, messy, often contradictory emotions that actually drive a purchase. Shame, pride, belonging, the fear of wasting money. Just think about a parent buying baby food.
Oh, it's not just about the ingredients. It's about that terrifying fear of, am I a good parent? Or will my kid choke on this? Or even, does this jar make me look like I can afford the best one?
That is the felt sense. And synthetic consumers really struggle with that. They just flatten it all out into logic. They might tell you the packaging is clear and informative, but they'll miss that the specific shade of green makes a real mother feel slightly nauseous because it reminds her of medicine.
Or cultural stuff, like humor or irony or status.
Those things just don't translate into code. And AI gives you a logical average, but great brands aren't built on the average. They're built on those sharp emotional spikes.
So you end up with a product that makes perfect sense on paper. It checks every single box, but on the shelf it has no soul. It's competent, but it's dead.
Correct. And failure mode 3 is even trippier. It sounds like a sci-fi horror movie title, Reality Drift. This one comes from a big report in Wired.
This is the feedback loop problem, isn't it?
Yes. So imagine you use synthetic data to train a system. That system generates insight, generates content. Then that content floods the internet. And then the next generation of AI comes along and scrapes that data to train itself.
It's like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy.
And eventually the image just turns to noise.
Yeah.
If you let the bots talk to the bots for long enough, you get reality drift. The organization becomes incredibly confident in its data because it's all so consistent, but they're drifting further and further away from what actual humans are doing out on the street.
You're optimizing for a world that doesn't exist. You're building this perfect map of a city that the AI built, not the city where your customers actually live.
And the really scary part is, you often don't realize it's happening until your sales tank.
And finally, failure mode 4, the ugly risk. Panel contamination. This one's so ironic because we use AI to avoid the hassle of surveying people, but then what did the Time study find?
It found that when you try to survey real people online, sending out questionnaires to research panels, a massive percentage of the responses are now coming from AI bots.
What?
Yeah, they're passing the detection checks.
So you think you're asking 500 real moms about your new sneaker design?
And you're actually getting answers from some bot farm in a basement that's just using AI to fill out surveys for pennies.
Yeah.
So the real data is synthetic, and the synthetic data is also synthetic.
Wow, it feels like the floor is just dropping out from under us. We can't fully trust the bots, and now we can't even trust that the humans are humans. That paints a pretty chaotic picture.
It does.
Yeah.
But we can't just throw our hands up and go back to 1990. The speed advantage is just too real. So we need a system. We need a way to manage this. And the source material outlines this framework called CAT-SITE.
CAT-SITE.
Hey.
It sounds a bit like a military operation.
It's a discipline. It stands for a series of gates, or checks a human truth firewall. The whole idea is to stop those weak signals we just talked about, the flattened emotions, the amplified inputs, from ever becoming business decisions.
Okay, let's break down the most important gates here, because I think this is the practical toolkit our listeners really need. Gate 1 is category and brand definition. This seems, I don't know, pretty basic.
You'd think so, but the sources say most people screw this up immediately. It's the garbage prompt problem. Teams tend to ask these high-level executive questions. They'll ask the AI, tell us about the future of snacking.
And the AI gives you back a generic Wikipedia-style answer. Snacking is increasing due to busy lifestyles. Thanks, genius.
Right. Useless. To get any value, you have to force precision. Gate 1 says you have to define the category, the occasion, the consumer, the context. Constrain the model. Don't ask about snacking. Ask. You are a busy commuter at 7 a.m. who missed breakfast. You have $5. You want something that won't make a mess on the train. Now, compare this protein bar to a banana.
Context is king. You have to paint the scene for the persona to act in.
Exactly. If you don't constrain the AI, it just hallucinates generic fluff.
Okay, gate 2 is consumer aim or objective. This is an interesting one. It's the difference between what the business wants and what the consumer wants.
Yeah, we so often prompt for our goals. Like, how can I increase market share for this soap? The consumer doesn't care about your market share.
At all.
They care about their aim, which is, I need to get this grease off my hands without drying out my skin. Gate 2 is just a simple check. Does this insight solve their problem or just yours?
Got it. Now, gate 3 and gate 4 seem to go together. Get intimate with the consumer and gather more to fill gaps. This feels like that hybrid model we talked about.
This is the firewall in action. Nielsen IQ suggests this specific workflow. Use synthetic for the what-generating hypotheses, finding patterns, screening ideas, but you have to use humans for the why.
So the AI might tell you people are buying more high-caffeine tea. That's the what.
Right, but why are they? Is it for energy? Is it a diet thing? Is it a status thing? Is it because they hate having coffee breath?
That's where you need a human.
That's where you need a human. And gate 4 says, don't rely on one big synthetic study. Run 3 small human checks instead. Go do a shop-along.
A shop-along?
Yeah, you literally go to the store with someone and watch them buy the tea. Ask them why they grabbed that specific box.
Real-world verification. If the AI map says there's a bridge, go look out the window and see if there's actually a bridge.
Simple, but absolutely essential.
Now, gate 5. This is my favorite part of the research. Find a human truth. We hear this buzzword all the time in marketing. What's the human truth? But the sources actually define it here. And it's not just a fact, is it?
No. People like convenience is not a human truth. That's a platitude. It's boring.
Yeah.
A human truth is emotionally anchored, and it usually involves tension.
Tension. Okay, give me an example. What does that sound like?
Okay, let's take sustainable fashion. The platitude is people want to save the planet. The human truth is I want to buy clothes that reflect my values, but I'm afraid I'll look frumpy or spend money that I don't have.
Ah, there it is. The I want X, but I fear Y. And ideally, your product is the thing that resolves that tension.
Exactly. AI is terrible at finding that specific tension because it just averages everything out. It gives you the platitude. You, the human, have to look at the data and find the real tension.
Yeah.
That's the human truth.
Gate 6 is take action. The sources use a term here that made me laugh out loud. Organizational entertainment.
It's painful because it's so true. We've all been in those meetings. You look at 100 charts, you nod, you feel smart. The PowerPoint was beautiful. And then on Monday morning...
You do exactly what you were going to do anyway.
Exactly. That's organizational entertainment. Insight without a destination.
So what's the fix?
Gate 6 demands a Monday plan. Every single insight needs an owner, a deadline, and a behavior metric. Who is changing what and by when? If you can't answer that, throw the data away. It's just noise.
Finally, gate 7. Governance. This sounds dry, I know. Nobody likes the word governance. But the sources, especially the MRSI and the Economic Times, are really pushing this. Why is this part of the firewall?
It goes back to that confident fiction risk we started with. Governance isn't a tax on your speed. It's the only thing that protects your credibility. You have to know who signs off. If you use synthetic data to make a billion-dollar decision and it goes wrong, who's responsible?
Right.
You need a code of conduct so people aren't just guessing what's allowed and what's not.
Speaking of that, the sources give a remarkably practical 90-day rollout plan. I love this because usually research just gives you the theory and leaves you hanging. If I'm a leader listening to this and I want to install this firewall, how do I actually start?
It's broken down into 3 phases. Days 1 to 15 are all about red lines.
What's a red line in this context?
You're defining what's allowed versus not allowed. And you have to be really explicit. For example, you might say, it is allowed to use synthetic consumers for brainstorming new product names, summarizing large texts, or generating flavor concepts.
And not allowed would be?
Not allowed might be final go-to-market decisions, anything involving sensitive health claims, or cross-cultural messaging where the AI is definitely going to miss the nuance. You draw the box so your team feels safe to play inside of it.
Okay. Then days 16 to 30.
That's the library. You build the templates. You don't want your junior marketers just typing whatever they want into the prompt bar. You create one-page templates that force them to define the context, the aim, the tension, all those gate one things we talked about. You make it hard to write a bad prompt.
Standardize the input.
Yeah.
Smart. And then the long stretch, days 31 to 60.
That's the 2-track sprint. This is where you actually practice the hybrid model. You run a project on track A, purely synthetic, for speed. And at the same time, you run track B, human verification. Shop-alongs, remote diaries, rapid quant.
So you're basically A/B testing the AI against reality.
You're proving to yourself where it works and where it hallucinates. You build your own organizational intuition. You might find out, hey, the AI is great at pricing, but it's terrible at package design. You won't know that until you run the tracks side by side.
And the final phase, days 61 to 90.
The playbook. You publish the governance. You make it official. The key insight here, and this is so important, is that speed comes from clarity. If everyone knows the rules, if they know exactly where the cliff edge is, they can drive the car really fast. If they're guessing, they either crash or they drive too slow because they're scared.
Which prevents that paralysis we talked about at the very beginning.
Exactly.
You know, stepping back from the gates and the plans. It feels like we're looking at a fundamental shift in how business even understands people. The synthetic consumer is here. We can't put that genie back in the bottle.
No, and honestly, we shouldn't want to. The ability to iterate this fast is a genuine superpower. The debate is no longer if we use them. The debate is how.
It really feels like a fork in the road for every organization.
It is. You have a choice. You can use synthetic consumers to become faster and smarter by using them to narrow your options and then verifying with real humans.
Yeah.
Or you can use them to become faster and sloppier.
And faster and sloppier is seductive. It's cheaper, it feels easier, you get the answer you want right away.
But it leads to reality drift. It leads to products nobody actually wants. It leads to confident fiction.
Faster and smarter takes discipline. It takes building that firewall.
That's the trade-off.
I want to leave our listener with a thought to mull over. We've talked about data and bots and speed, but ultimately this all comes down to meaning. If you let the bots just talk to the bots, reality starts to drift away. The human truth firewall is the only thing standing between your brand and that drift.
It's all about keeping a human in the loop.
So here's the provocative question for you. In a world of infinite, instant, synthetic data, who in your organization is actually guarding the meaning? Who has the authority to stand up and say the data looks perfect, but it isn't true?
And if you don't have an answer to that question, you might be in trouble.
That's the deep dive for today. Thanks for swimming through the data with us.
Always a pleasure.
Keep checking your reality, and we'll catch you on the next one.